Hello and welcome to another Java tutorial. This is the Best Mac Tutorials. Please watch this in HD full screen, that way you can read the text on the screen better. So this is going to be a new tutorial, Java Tutorial 5, and I'm going to be going over some pretty basic but new information. It's very useful. I'm going to be going over how to use a random number generator. That includes importing it, the class for it, which is really easy. It's just like the scanner class, making an object, which is just like the scanner class, and then using it. I'm also going to go over stuff like while statement. Well, actually, I'm going to go over while statements. And basically that's, you have while, and then you have something in parentheses, and if that is true, then it will run the block of code that's associated with while. So I showed you how to use methods last time. I'm not going to be using methods this time because it wouldn't really, I guess it would make sense, but I'm just going to not use that because sometimes they can get confusing, especially on a tutorial. So I will be using that in future tutorials, I'm sure, but for now I'm just going to show you how they work. So, oh, and also I wrote a simple little card game using these methods and what we've learned before, not methods, using these using these new things I'm introducing today. It took me part of yesterday, part of today. Not very long, a lot of copy and pasting. But anyway, I made a simple card game, and I'll show you that in just a minute to kind of reiterate and illustrate kind of how something like this could be used practically. So we're going to use both the scanner class and the random class. So I'm just going to import java.util.asterisk, which imports everything in the Java utilities. So then I'm going to make my random object. I'm just going to call it random. So random equals new random. How original. And so basically this is making an object called random that is a random object that we can use. So then say, just to illustrate how this works, say I have an integer a equals random.next. See, just like scanner.next int. And this time, instead of just leaving these parentheses blank, I'm going to put something in. So say I put 3. That means it'll choose anything. It'll choose, there's up to 3 random numbers that it'll generate. Now that doesn't start from 1, that starts from 0. If you want to shift it over so that it would print out numbers starting at 1 and going up to 3, so 1, 2, and 3, you would simply put plus 1 here, because then whatever it is plus 1. So if it's 0, it's now 1. If it's 1, it's now 2. If it's 2, it's now 3. Does that make sense? Well, not that you guys can really respond while I'm doing this video, but hopefully that makes sense. And so if I just do a system.out.println a. So I'm just going to print out a. As you see, I run it, and I got 1. Try it again. I got 1. Again, I got 2, 3. You'll never see anything below 1 or over. Oh joy. Never see anything over 3 or below 1. See, 1. And if I run it again, I will either get 2, 3, or 1, 2. Okay. So now you see how that works. So now I'm going to show you the while class. So say I'm just going to integrate it in with this. So I'm also going to define another integer, say integer b, and I'm going to tell it that I'm going to make b equal to 3. And this is what I call a while loop, and this is what it's called a while loop. It's not just me that calls it. I'm not the only one. And basically it's like this: while, and then something that's true, say b is greater than 0, it'll execute the chunk of code inside of these brackets. So that could be system.out.println. Well, hey, it could be a countdown. Watch. If I put 3 in there, or not 3, what am I saying? If I put b in there, it'll print out the integer b. And then if I go b minus minus, this is shorthand, I'm also going to teach you this. If you have b minus minus or b plus plus, or any variable, you could have course plus plus, like that, or whatever. Obviously it doesn't like that because I haven't defined it yet. But that means add 1 to b. So that's the equivalent of saying b equals b equals b plus 1. That's the equivalent of doing that. It's just easier to write b plus plus. And when someone's reading through your code, if they know Java, it's really quick to snap into their head what you're doing instead of having to interpret b equals b plus 1. So then you have to say, okay, so they're adding 1 to b and putting that as b. Now you can just know they're increasing the value of b by 1. So it makes it fairly readable for someone who knows Java, obviously. And it's easy to use a shorthand, kind of. So I'm just going to delete this. So every time, so we start with b equals 3, and b on the first time is b bigger than 0? Yes, it's 3. So it'll run this, and then it'll subtract 1 from b. b is now 2. Is b bigger than 0? Yes, b is 2. So it'll print this again. Then is b bigger than b is 1, because we subtract 1 from b. So then is 1 bigger than 0? Yes. So it runs this block of code again. Then it subtracts 1, and b is now equal to 0. Is b bigger than 0? No. So it'll stop running this loop. And if I had something out here like system.out.println blast off, blast oof. So then if I run this, you'll see it prints 3, 2, 1 blast off, like that. Because after it's done, it will keep running this, and it won't go to the next line, to the next outside of these brackets. Now I could add brackets inside, of course. I could go, system.out. I could add brackets inside here. I could do another while. I could do a nested while statement in here. I could do, integer c equals 2, and then do we'll say while c is greater than 2, or greater than 0, I guess I should say. It'll run this block of code. Actually, I don't need these. I don't know why I added those. We don't need those. So I will just delete those. And so then it'll run. Proper spacing is important for debugging, so it's good to get into the habit of spacing everything logically, only one pair of brackets per line, etc. System.out.println. So watch. What it'll do is it'll run, this is interesting, it'll do 3 and then print high 2. See, it's going to keep running because I never made C, I never subtracted 1 from C like that. So we're just going to stop. So we're just going to run this again and see 3 high 2 high 1 high blast off. And it didn't print highs after blast off, notice, because what it did is it did this while statement, then it hit this one, then it did this one, and it said, oh, C is now 1, which is bigger than 0, so it did this while statement again. Then it went back to the top and did the whole thing over. So it's like nested while statements. I could put another one here, while C is bigger than, 999, and every single time it goes through this, it'll print 999 of whatever I want it to do, or run that code inside those brackets 999 times, which is sometimes useful. Sometimes it can be used to annoy the end user. So anyway, now I'm going to, I'm not going to save this. So I'm going to show you the this little game I made. First I'm going to show you what it does, and I'm going to show you kind of how I made it. So I'm just going to clear this. I don't really need to. I'm going to run this anyway. But what is it doing here? Here we go. Okay. So it'll give you instructions. Welcome to my card game. This is a fair shuffled stack of cards. I guess that should be deck, but whatever. Console. This is a fair shuffled stack of cards in the middle of the table. You and your opponent will both draw a card, and the higher of the two cards wins. Cards are shuffled back into the deck after each round. The player at the end of the round who won the most rounds is at the end of the... I should put game. At the end of the game... Let's run that again. Okay, so this is for real now. Welcome to my card game. This is a fair shuffled stack of cards in the middle of the table. You and your opponent will both draw a card, and the higher of the two cards wins. Cards are shuffled back into the deck after each round. The player at the end of the game who won the most rounds is the winner of the game. After you are done reading the current round, press enter to move to the next round. And I'm also going to show you how I did that press enter to move to the next round thing. So how many rounds, prompts you for how many rounds you'd like to play. I'm going to put in 11. So it tells you what you have drawn, then what your opponent has drawn, then whether you won, lost, or tied. press enter again, set 11, so now it'll give you your final score. It'll tell you what your score is, what your opponent's final score is, and whether you won, lost, or tied down there. And so if I run this again, you will see that if I enter a negative number, it'll skip right to the results, which is kind of funny. I'll show you why in just a minute. And if I enter something like 2.3, it'll spit out a bunch of errors at me because it's mad. So now I'm going to show you how this program works. So I'm going to clear this. Put this down a little further. Okay, so I imported my java.utilities. That way I could use both the scanner, which was essential here, and actually in the other one I just did, that I was doing the examples, I imported the whole folder and I said I was going to use scanner. I didn't use scanner, I lied. I was thinking about when I used it here, but that was a really simple example. By the way, look at all this code. It's a very long piece of code. I think the file I'm uploading in Mediafire of this code is around like 36 kilobytes or something, which, you know, for just text is, I guess, fairly large. So anyway, we import our, well, you see it does have color formatting, so that's probably part of it. But anyway, we import our java.util. We could do java.util.random and then java.util.scanner, but we're just going to import the whole folder. It's faster. And in these days, space isn't much of a problem, so importing the whole, and processing power is not a problem, so importing the whole thing is really not a problem at all. So anyway, right here we made our new random object. Then we made our new scanner object. We defined integer b and c. B right here, that integer, is your score. C, the one I just highlighted. C is, not C as in SE, but C as in the integer C, is your opponent's score. Then I defined a double D and an integer F, which you'll see in just a minute. So what I did is I did all my instructions. I did these, I like these, I just kind of thought of this trick. I know it's been used before, it's nothing new, but I just thought of this and thought that'd be kind of nice. It kind of helps separate. It's using all these hyphens here. So anyway, so then it prompts you over how many rounds. Then I used D right here. I made, I was just having fun with this. So my scanner object here is called scanner on-in equals new scanner of the type system.in. Not really of the type, but yeah. But anyway, I made my scanner object here and I called it on-in, not in. So notice how I put D equals on-in.nextInt. I just thought I'd, one, do that just for the heck of it. Two, I had it used further down, scanner in equals new scanner, and I was too lazy to bring it and pull it back up. So I just decided I'd make a new one, and also it illustrates how, you know, if you change it here, then you change it here, and how you can do that very easily. So then I did more of my hyphens. Yay. And then I did nested while statements. So while D is bigger than 0, and notice I have my double D here. So D has been defined as what the user inputs. It'll do this whole statement, so it'll do a random number. Then if that's 2, then it'll run this block of code, if that random number is 2. If it's 3, it'll run this block of code down here. If it's 4, it'll run this block of code down here. You get where I'm going. All the way down to, since there's a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, Jack, King, Queen, and Ace in a deck, it is 13, because we have 10 minus 1 because it starts at 2, plus the 4 for the Jack, King, Queen, and Ace, and 9 plus 4 equals 13, last time I checked, and base 10. So anyway, so here we have, so you see where I'm going with this. This is the first random integer we entered, and then in here we have a second random integer nested inside with kind of, not, these are nested else if and if statements. So we have another random integer, and then if that, so this one, the first one you drew, A, is the card that you got. So if it's a 2, then it's a 2. If it's, and then once you get to 10, if it's a 10, then you got it, drew a 10. If it's 11, you drew a jack. If it's a 12, you drew a king. If it's a 13, you drew a king. And if it's a 14, you drew an ace. And the reason I went up to 14 even though I only had 13 is because I added 1 to the number. Actually, no. That is wrong. That's applicable for E. I actually made this a little sloppily. A has plus 2 here, so that the 2 card is number 2, the 3 card is number 3, all the way up to 10 is number 10, and then Jack, King, Queen, King, Ace are 11, 12, 13, and 14, whereas on this one they are 10, 11, 12, and 13 because this is only plus 1. I really should. I'm too lazy to go in and change that to plus 2 and redo my code and whatever, but I really should have thought of I should have been consistent, but I wasn't, so oh well. So then I have that nested inside, and so then if E equals 1, so if the card your opponent drew, and by the way, this block of code is different for each one of the statements because, say you drew a 5, then this one has to be that it's this one has to be that you won, this one has to be that it's a draw, and this one has to be you lost. Whereas the next one, it all shifts. So I was able to copy and paste it and then just make the change that two changes that I need. And then what I did is whenever you win, it does D minus minus, or whenever you lose, it does D minus minus, or whenever you tie, it's a D minus minus. Also, if you want to make a game where when you tie, it doesn't take away from one of the rounds, it doesn't count as a round, you would just take the D minus minus out of the round, out of the draw for the round. D minus minus is, like I said earlier, shorthand for subtracting 1 from D, and that means that then the integer D, which is what the user entered for how many rounds they want, has 1 subtracted from it. So you can see where this is going. If they entered 3 and then I ran this 3 times, it'd be at 0, then 0 is not bigger than 0, so it'd stop running and then give the results. So after it stopped running, after the while statement was no longer true, it would skip on to the next code, which is this, which is announcing the final. I don't really think I need to explain this, but I will. So it prints out my little dashes, yay, and then what your final score is, your opponent's score is, and it's concatenation. It's a concatenation sign, the plus sign. Plus sign is easier to say. Concatenation is kind of hard to remember, but it sounds cool. And then I enter B, which is yours, and then here C, which is your opponent's. Then I do kind of an if, else if statement. So if B is bigger than C, then it says you've won. If C is bigger than B, it means your opponent beat you, so you lost. But I don't want to say you lost because that's kind of mean. Actually, I should put you lost. You're not very good at this game, or something like that. That'd be funny. But anyway, and then if they're equal, and by the way, you have to have 2 equal signs, or if you only have 1, it'll think you're trying to do booleans, which you're not. And I'll say you tied, then it ends with these, and that's the end of the game. And so you can see where these nested kind of code comes from. So if you drew an 8, then when you scroll down to 8, it's a draw. 7, you won, and 9, you lost. When you won, it adds 2 to B. It adds 1 to B because of the 2 plus signs, and subtracts 1 from D because it's a round taken. This one doesn't add or subtract this one doesn't add to anyone's score because you drew, which means neither of you got a point. So I just did D minus minus because it's still subtracting from the round. And then the next one is C++, not the language, but it's C++ because since you lost the round, it's adding 1 to your opponent's score. And anything after this is then C++. Not C++ code, but has C++ integrated into it so that it adds 1 to your opponent's score. And so that's the case for all of these. Copying and pasting saved my life here. So that is essentially it for this. I will, of course, be posting the source code to this on Mediafire and giving you a download link in YouTube. I forgot one thing. I forgot how to show you how I did that where you press enter to continue. So basically I used the scanner class here, and I just called it keyboard. And so I made my scanner object here. And then I said if the keyboard is the next line, this line, keyboard.next line, enter is next line. So if next line is entered, then it moves on. It moves on in the program. It moves on to something else. I don't know how to explain it any better. You don't have to have keyboard here. You could have anything really. It just has to match here and here, and of course everywhere else that you have that scanner class used. And what I did is every time I copied and pasted, so of course this happened, I redefined the scanner class every time. I didn't need to do that, but Java didn't give me a weird error because I did it properly, because it's the exact same thing and used properly and whatever, so it didn't get mad at me. But generally it's not good practice to make a bunch of scanner objects all with the same name. You only make one because that's wasted space and wasted lines of code, and you don't need it and whatnot, and it's extra work. But copy and paste just happened to do that for me, and whatever. So anyway, that was about it for today. I hope this line of code makes sense to you. If it doesn't, you can certainly look up. I don't know exactly what you'd look up. I guess enter to continue Java or something like that. But anyway, I will be uploading this source code to Mediafire. I'll be posting the link in the description below. That is, I think, about it. If you have any questions, feel free to comment or message me on YouTube. If you have any, if your code's not working or whatever, feel free to comment or message me. I will be happy to help you to the best of my abilities, although I might not be able to, although if it is over what I showed in this tutorial, I should be able to help you with it. And that is essentially all for today. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. This is the Best Mac Tutorials, and I will